as such, is our monthly Mental Health Matters. We want you to be a part of a discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much. And for some of us, we're trying to figure out, is it really the new year or really in day 7 of the first month? You know, the rest of our lives. And it is our monthly Mental Health Matters. We sit and we ponder, and in a pensive state we consider, where have all the good things gone? Well, I'm honored to be surrounded by good people as we have a chance to have our monthly Mental Health Matters. Mr. Terry Delina together with Dr. Alexander Boyd and Dr. Colleen Brown and Ms. Heather Lockhart. Good afternoon, welcome, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And in unison, we'll go, it's going to be nice.
We'll come by y'all later.
Let's do that. We can come by y'all later, too. But Dr. Boyd, I say this with great respect to you, especially, for being able to every month harness such a wonderful complement of professionals to join us and have this discussion. And hopefully, as a public, listen and reflect and recognize that, it is, for our well-being that we get to look at our health in all aspects, and hopefully this show continues to give them, some insight. So thank you very much, Mom. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. I'm excited to be coming to our 5th year here, so thank you so much to Radio Cayman for allowing us to do this. Definitely, we've got a great schedule lined up this year. We've got lots of input from the people around the table here, as well as a few other professionals, but we're always open to feedback from listeners as well. You can find me on Dr. Alexandra Bodden on Facebook. All the information's there, or drbodden.com has our upcoming schedule. So let me know if there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, any questions that you have.
All right.
And thank you to Radio Cayman for allowing us to do this.
Well, Radio Cayman is honored to do it, and as for you as professionals to take time out of your days, this isn't PR. This is a lot of work. And, you have to schedule yourself, so we're grateful for that. And hopefully as the public listens, we start to reflect that it's important to look at our health. Dr. Colleen, from your perspective?
I think it's great that we are going to be on the air for another year doing this. Dr. Bodden has, like she said, she has some wonderful shows coming up. And I have to apologize up front that I am a little bit under the weather. So in discussing change and self-reflection, I may not be as vocal as I normally am because I am just getting over the flu. So I apologize for that up front, but I will do my best at giving my perspective as well.
Well, thank you. Well, Terry Delina, that sort of falls to you, be the pinch hitter, where, Ms. Colleen can't step in, you step up, and we'll get it rolling.
The first thing I'll say is ditto. I know. I have a bit of a throat problem momentarily myself. But that's not going to stop any of us, I'm sure. We're devoted to what we're doing. And that's one of the reasons this kind of format, to come together with professionals in itself, is a very, very important and very beneficial thing. To see each other, look in our eyes, talk about what we're doing. And secondly, I think it's a great service for the community. Because over the years, and my mentor taught me this, what I do as a counselor, as a therapist, is not confined to a room where I sit and talk with someone one-on-one. I have to carry that with me, not any of the difficulties, but the behavior and the mentality of it into the community, as we all do, so people are aware that mental health is a major issue. And I think I've said it before, but I wish so many years ago nobody ever even came up with mental health. It's about health. If my stomach's in a bad way, I go to see an internist. If I have a so-called mental problem, I need to see a specialist who deals with thinking and cognition and these kinds of things. So I don't downplay it, but I just think of it as general health, and it needs a lot of attention because it's been ignored for a long time. Indeed. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, we're very glad, and I think that's what we've tried to so far get people to understand that it's unfortunately it's still a stigma, but it's hopefully weaning. And it's healthy from that perspective. People start to see that it's all encompassing. A word that unfortunately has become a cliche. We talk about holistic. We hear politicians because we take the holistic view. We hear, everybody, but it is true. We need to be able to be all encompassing. To you, you've brought a great deal to the table as well. So thank you for allowing us.
Thank you. And I love this forum because it brings so many different professionals to the table. I've learned so much from being here. And I know that others have as well. I've had people stop me in the grocery store and say, well, I don't call in, but I listen. So it's a powerful space to bring ideas to the table, reduce stigma, and talk about health, as Terry mentioned. We've got 2 folks at the table who aren't feeling, completely 100% today. And the same is true of mental health. We have ups and downs, all of us. So it's important to talk about the issues that can, bring us up and also things that can bring us down too. So this is a wonderful space for that.
Well, I was just thinking about it, Dr. Bond, from as you've put together the schedule for the year, not just today. Yes, we understand the importance of coordinating schedules, figuring out what is of value. This notion of self-reflection. And if we come to the table today, we have jobs to do, families, we have obligations. You may not be feeling 100% because of some physical thing. It could be a little bug you picked up. It could just be, you still feel a little bit down because of something. But you have to move on. And not just about putting a good face forward. It's about, moving on with a sense of conviction, but also reflection.
And so the topic for today is self-reflection and looking at that as a precursor to success. A lot of times at the beginning of the year, our show, as well as many others, look at how to achieve goals. How do you set good goals? How do you get there? What are you going to do about it this year? What are you doing differently? New year, new you. But I think a lot of times what we don't really talk about is, well, what happened last year? What was going on? A lot of times resolutions are, we've given all the stats before, like 70% of people don't follow through on them. They don't make it past the first week. The ones who do, it's about 6 weeks. So, looking back at what worked, what didn't work. And I think in allowing ourselves the space to look at what worked last year, what was good, what can we build on, what progress have we made, what successes did we have? Looking at the good stuff, but also looking at maybe what could be done differently to help us make a better plan for this year. We did a poll on Facebook to ask how important people think it is to look back while planning to go forward, and 100% said, I was like, no one did my poll. I was very upset this morning. We had lots of people respond, and everyone said, it's important to reflect. So that's what we want to talk about today, is using self-reflection, looking back, not only getting in touch with ourselves and what's going on for us as we are now, but also looking at the past year before moving forward.
Yeah. No, from that, the idea that self-reflection, some people would sit down, and if it's a business deal or a financial sort of projection, no question, they'll compare different years. They'll do a serious analysis, look at the trends. They'll look at the budget versus the forecast and all those things. And they can see that as being, this is what you do. Last year we were over 5% in this area advertising, we were under. But for our own selves, how do we do that? One, and for some people, despite they understand that it's probably important, but they will think, well, I don't really have time for that. I'm going to sit down, how do I reflect on it?
Time is one aspect of it. And as Dr. Bod mentioned, the desire to move forward. Let's just get on with us. Just keep going. Pausing for self-reflection is very important, but it can be difficult because being objective about ourselves can be very difficult. Sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. We're looking just at what didn't happen, what went wrong, beating ourselves up about things. So trying to be as objective as we can. Sometimes it's helpful to get some other feedback from others. And taking a look at how did things go, how can we learn from things that didn't go as we'd liked, and how can we learn and grow from the previous year or the previous months to get where we want to be this coming year. It's very, very important to pause and reflect.
Okay, from that perspective then, there are some who would be very philosophical, very pensive, and they'll get down and they go, oh, that's deep. But is that what we're talking about, or is it just for you taking a moment and saying, you know what? This is what is important to me. Last year I was working, 50 hours a day, and I really didn't get to spend time with my parents, or I have a dog, and I don't, go outside and play catch with the dog, or go fishing. Is it that, or is it that you say Dr. Warren?
No, it's definitely a spectrum of everything, right? It might be the deep philosophical ones and just kind of searching for your meaning in life and what your purpose is and those kinds of things.
So look beyond what you see.
Always good to keep in your mind as well. And I think especially because those things change. Dreams can change, and that's okay. But I think even just the smaller things are important as well, because things like spending time with your dog are simple things that you can bring in that are simple things that will improve the overall quality of your life as well. So I'd say it is the range of them. And an interesting activity Miss Heather and I have actually done in workshops is comparing your values with where your time is spent, which is interesting as well and captures a lot of that.
Because we are living our priorities.
Yeah.
So we can say, these are my big priorities in life. It might be your dog. It might be your, whatever you're talking about, your children, whatever you're saying they are. But how we spend our time, we can't spend all day with our dogs. But we well, thinking about that. I do have 3 dogs, and I spend a lot of time with them. But how we actually invest our time is we're living our priorities every single day. So taking a look at what Dr. Bodden mentioned, am I living as closely to the things that I say count as possible? Or is that important? Or maybe it's time to shift what we're talking about in terms of our priorities. So just kind of doing a little bit of maybe a whiteboard or a mental whiteboard of how am I doing in terms of living the life that I want to live.
The things that values you, the things... Now, from that perspective, I know that you jump in as you wish, and I'm glad, despite being a little bit under the weather, you're still ready to join us. For some of us, it is easy to prioritize certain things. Mentally, we can even write it down. But action in those things, we need to, maybe study a little bit more because we have exams in 6 months, or we need to perhaps exercise a little more because that big game is coming up. Whatever that thing is, but man, translate that into action. Whoa. The words are easier. How do we get to that point where, 1, we start to appreciate, all right, let's start prioritizing, let's start reflecting, and then 2, once we identify what is of value, making it happen?
I think something that I spend a lot of time doing with people, especially teens, when I work with them, is trying to break things down, because it's really easy to say that maybe I want to become a marathon runner, right? That sounds like a wonderful thing, and those are wonderful words. But going from a level where you're sitting on the couch to being a marathon runner, there's a lot of steps in there. And sometimes, especially on my work with kids and adolescents, they tend to be down on themselves if they don't achieve that, end goal, when they haven't really thought about how they're going to get to each step. Especially, I can reflect back with my sickness right now. For example, this may not be the time for me to be like, I'm going to go walk 5 miles a day, because right now I can't do it. I need to get healthier first. So my first step might be, okay, let's walk to the end of the block, that type of thing, so that you can make small changes to sometimes get to a bigger change. And when Miss Heather was talking about a whiteboard, that's a wonderful way to try to break down each thing and try to have each task be smaller so that you can slowly see your progress moving towards that bigger goal.
So, Tara, from that perspective, we sometimes, maybe we're in a meeting, with our parents, maybe it's with our colleagues. You need to get perspective. You need to get a handle on this thing. We use that word often in a way, but is it as much as that we should look at things from different angles, be able to take the time to appreciate what is it that's of value, of meaning?
Well, I think when you bring up that point where somebody will say, you need to get perspective, I always wonder, are they saying you need to get my perspective? Because we all have a different perspective. And like what you're talking about, motivation, different people will take different avenues to get motivated. And that's an acceptable thing. And we need to get to know who the individual is, whether you're coaching a football team or whatever you might be doing. You get to know what the individual's needs are and what motivates them and how they'll move forward. It was mentioned a little while ago about the desire to move forward. We want to get things done. We're oriented towards the future in a lot of ways. And I don't know whether to call it a correction of a saying, but it was a different perspective on a saying my mentor gave me many years ago, and it was about the concept of every journey starts with the first step. I think we probably all heard that. What he had emphasized to me is that actually every journey starts with where my feet are right now. So when we look at self-reflection, yes, we have to reflect on the past. Yes, we have to make decisions about the future. But boy, we really got to take a close look at where I am right now.
All right. Well, when we come back from this break, as we continue our month in mental health matters, the importance of self-reflection, a precursor to success. Hey, share with us if you want. Maybe it is as simple as you've made it out to be. Maybe it's more complex than you recognize. But hey, maybe it isn't as difficult as you think it is either. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Look forward to hearing from you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
RC Fusion, featuring Billboard pop, hit songs, and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Country and Western. No mess, no fuss, just the best in Caymanian cuisine at a price you can afford.
Country and Western now offering delivery. Call 945-4079.
RC Fusion.
RC Fusion.
We are Radio Cayman, and this is how we wake you up in the morning. Praise time. Praise time on Radio Cayman.
Walk them golden stairs, 'cause I know my Jesus answers all my prayers.
Praise time.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Praise time.
There's nothing to go back to. Give me Jesus in the morning. For the God of the mountain is still God.
Praise time.
Jesus in the morning, yeah.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037, 949-8037, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Those numbers are answered by the wonderful Miss Susan. So even if you just want to tell her Happy New Year, you call and she actually is a real person. You don't hear her often, but she exists. And she puts through the calls and does all the other good things that make her shows work. It is a monthly mental health matters. We're talking about the importance of self-reflection and like a precursor to success. Got a wonderful team. I at outset had tried to remind myself of I don't want to say the prodding of a colleague or a boss. I'm not sure what word to use. You got guests in. Sometimes you should take for granted that everybody knows who they are, and maybe invite them if they want to share a little bit about themselves. And I didn't do that at the outset because, I'm just a regular guy. But if you wish, maybe Mr. Terry, to our listeners out there, and out of a tribute to Mr. Jeff Schofield, who said, we didn't just find these in the parking lot. These are real people.
At least this time.
At least
that's right. Yeah.
Tomorrow, we're not sure.
I came walking out of the government building, and all of a sudden I got snagged and pulled in here.
There you go. It happens.
But even, this may be getting a little bit weird, but even that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be one of spontaneous stuff is just as valid and valuable.
As long as you don't show them the microphone. They pull away.
Yes.
Man, you honestly, you ask someone an opinion, and depending on how you ask and who it is and when, they'll share with you. But a camera or a microphone, you were just talking. What happened? All right. Terry Delina, former Mr. Universe cover of... not the same guy? I've
had a varied life, and it's been great.
Okay.
It's been great. Actually, the kinds of things we're talking about are so important to me because I really believe without reflection, I don't think it's possible to have growth and development. You know, it's just that concept. I don't know to paint a wall until I look at the wall and realize it's gotten dingy or there's chips out of it or whatever it might be. So we're not going to be, as I believe we're supposed to be, continually improving to some extent without taking that time to reflect. And it doesn't necessarily have to go to the in-depth, heavy-duty psychology or philosophy. It can be, how am I doing when I go for a walk, when I walk my dogs? You know, I mean, really, it's like, how are my feet working? How are my ankles? Is there pain? Am I, you know, so that we're more aware of ourselves in every way, physically as well as, what am I thinking? Why is it when that person said that, I felt so angry and so insulted and so hurt? Nobody else seemed to see it that way, but I felt it. Wonder why that is. Not to overanalyze, but to reflect and think about it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, sometimes we don't appreciate the moment we're in, but we also don't, you know, stop for a second to realize that we are where we are sometimes because of the turns we made or failed to make. Dr. Watton, from that view.
Yeah. As far as like who we are?
Yeah,
or
but Mr. Terry, he's happy about being Mr. Universe.
Yeah. Well, so I think for introductions for who we are and what we do, I'm Dr. Alexandra Bodden. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing with addictions and complex trauma. So I work a lot with adult survivors of childhood abuse. But in the practice, I see kids, teens, and adults. And work with everything from anxiety, mood disorders, depression, bipolar, pretty much anything that comes up, difficult life transitions. So
she's often special to talk show host, counseling on the go.
At On-Course Cayman.
I'm Dr. Colleen Brown. I work at On-Course Cayman with Dr. Bodden. I work primarily with children and adolescents, but I do work with adults as well. I've done a lot of work with children who have survived sexual and physical abuse, trauma. I've pretty much worked with the gamut of, you know, issues that are out there. Anybody who works with children will know that kids usually have a few different things going on. They don't normally just have one thing going on. So do assessment and individual therapy sessions, family therapy sessions. And when we're discussing self-reflection in particular, one thing I have recently moved, in August I moved from the United States, from the Philadelphia area. So I think that that's actually something that has been obviously very big impact on me. It's a huge change. And that's something that when we're discussing self-reflection and discussing, you know, things changing in someone's life and trying to take steps, you have to look at where you came from. And when I made such a big change, it may not be time for me to make a couple more big changes right now until I get used to where I am at this time. So that's actually something I wrote a blog post about recently. And I think it's important to consider things like that as well, cut ourselves some slack sometimes, which I've been trying to do for myself.
Yeah, it was held that's something I think many of us don't do. We don't give ourselves credit. We don't. We're our worst critics. We beat ourselves up the most we have. But from Miss Heather Lockhart.
And that's an excellent point. And I'm a coach. I'm a life coach at BHAC, which is a behavioral health practice right around the corner. I've been a coach for 5 years. And what we do as coaches is we help hold up the mirror and help people see themselves, which sounds easy, but it's not. We have a hard time seeing ourselves sometimes. And a big part of that is helping people see the positives in themselves, because we do tend to be very self-critical and dwell on critical things sometimes. So it's good to see areas where we want to strengthen, but we want to also see our positive attributes as well. And that can be difficult sometimes, harder than it sounds. And sometimes we will dwell on, if you get a review for an employer, for instance, you can hear 20 things that are good, and you'll go home driving in the car and sit and ruminate at night about the things that, you know, oh my gosh, my boss said what? Even it can be helpful. Dr. Bodden and I do organizational work with companies, small and large, to help create positive change in their organizations. And, you know, we'll shoot back and forth, you know, PowerPoints and what could be better to help each other. And that's in a colleague area, but we don't want it to be out in the world that there's a mistake on it or something like that. But sometimes even when Dr. Bodden says something like, well, this could be better, I'll think, wow, why didn't I think of that? So sometimes, it's really tough. Anything that's negative or critical, we can really dwell on it. And yet it's important to use those areas for growth edges. So that was a tough thing in coaching. As a credentialed coach with the ICF, we actually have recorded calls that we'll listen to. And we'll come back with a mentor coach and they say, you did this well, you did this well. And when we listen to the recorded calls, we'll think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. Or I can't believe I didn't do that as well as I could have. So we do tend to, when we're self-reflecting, sometimes go towards the parts that, we don't like.
Well, when you look at the mirror, self-reflection, mirror reflection, what's that? Probably one of the most gifted musicians talk about, start with the man in the mirror. Are we looking from that perspective? But is it then in analyzing what we see and looking? Do we at one time, or maybe on one hand, hold ourselves to exacting standards, but on the other, some of us, we're not willing to raise the bar. Any old thing is good enough. Where is that balance that we drive?
It's an excellent balance. And that's a very individual thing as well. Where do you want to go? Where are you headed? What would you like to see in your own life? One of the questions we ask in the coaching space is, how would you like it to be? If you had a magic wand, how would you like your life to be? Or the situation to be? Or your year to be? Or your job situation to be? Or the relationship to be? What are you hoping for? It's not my job as a coach to say, this is how it should be. It's really the client's expectations and goals that are very important.
But from that, if I may ask, parent and the teacher, and just use the basketball coach, for instance, wants to improve the child, the student, the player, we want you to get here. We know you can improve your free throw percentage. How do we lead, guide, direct, counsel, and get them to that point where we know you've got potential? Come on, Terry. Help us out here, man.
It's incredibly complicated. And, it depends on how deep you want to discuss the topic. I think there has to be positive affirmation above all. If you don't come in with positive, to say, I saw the layup you just made on the basketball court. It was brilliant. I know you can work well. The dribbling you can work on. You can bring it to the point and be as good at that as you are at the layup. And to bring in that positive sense, can then people really listen? If you start off with the criticism, if you say, your ball handling really is bad news, they're going to shut down right then and there. And you have to know the individual and what their needs are and how to approach them. Some people need positive affirmations more than others. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people need almost a military approach. You get out there and do it right. And that works for them. So you have to be willing to accept that different people have different sensitivities, different perspectives, and be able to do that shift between how you approach.
Yeah. As you sit down thinking, I just smile because it is in life what motivates people and what gets them. And what Louis Gossett Jr. said to Richard Gere in that famous movie, most things come from Texas. I know some young folks went, what? Well, you Google it, YouTube it, whatever, you'll see it. I don't see no horns. But with that, then, when we're looking at self-reflection, and it's something that some of us may do because it's New Year's Eve, may do because something, very significant is transpiring or has or will, then others do it, I think, maybe every day, every week. Just look, how was yesterday? What is today? We see I got some friends and they say it's them, and I think it's probably innate because of their cultural upbringing. They take a few minutes every day, and whether it's yoga or whether it's meditation or prayer, they do this thing, and you watch them transcend sometimes. Right, Dr. Warden?
Yeah, journaling can be a great way to do it as well. Okay. And just kind of just taking a few minutes just to reflect on what's going on. And I think a lot of it is about being aware of what's going on. Ms. Terry talked about kind of reflecting if you have an emotional reaction or something comes up. And I think being aware of what's going on and being open to other options. That for any goal, Dr. Brown talks about breaking down goals. I think to get anywhere, there's different ways of getting there. Part of that's going to be looking at your personality, the resources you have available to you, and if you're working with someone else, knowing what's important to them as well. But I think being willing to consider other options is really important.
All right. I think, Ms. Susan, we got a break coming up. When we come back, ask a question in two ways. What gives life meaning? What's the scripture talks about, Ms. Colleen? The idea is show me where your heart is, there also is your treasure, or thereabouts. So that notion that what is the purpose and meaning of life, what gives it, as we reflect, see where it takes us. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Stay connected and enjoy your favorite holiday moments with Flow. Make Christmas memories great with the best phones at amazing holiday prices. Get the Samsung Galaxy A8 from $43.25 a month or the S9 from $70.75 a month from Flow. Sign up for Flow Quad Play to share up to 50 gigs of data and 5,000 calling minutes. It's amazing value and great gifts for loved ones or yourself. Plus, plenty of chances to win Flow holiday prizes. So make it Flow for everything mobile this Christmas. Visit discoverflow.ky for more. Terms and conditions apply.
Lucky Slice Pizza.
It's love at first bite. Shaking your radio 3 to 6 weekdays.
Oh my God. From Radio Came On Super Jam Showdown.
May I have your attention?
Yo. One love.
Hip hop lead act, Jay-Z.
Peace, y'all. This is Nas.
Peace.
Super Jam.
Is proudly sponsored by
Lucky Slice Pizza.
It's love at first bite. Call 949-3456 or visit K-Man Pizza to place your order today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And if you, well, only because Miss Susan reminds me, tell people go to YouTube. Yeah, that's where it's at. YouTube, and you can type in Radio Cayman live stream and subscribe. Is that how it is, Miss Susan? All right. It's radio, 89.9 on Grand Cayman. That's the best place to hear us. It is our monthly mental health matters, and she makes me smile, but boy, she runs a tight ship. Miss Susan in the background. Must be that Cayman back work ethic. In the studio, as we have our monthly mental health matters, the importance of self-reflection is sort of precursor to success. Thank you so much to our wonderful panel, ably always facilitated by Dr. Alexandra Boyd and Joanna Terry Delaney and Dr. Colleen Brown together with Ms. Heather Lockhart. Life, somewhat, honestly, try to assess what is it that's important to us in life. You know, we value the job not because of the paycheck, but because of what we're doing. You know, we may be a nurse, you know, we may be a police officer, we may be a teacher, and it's certainly not a big paycheck that we probably deserve. Others, you know what? It's the work because it gives us an element of free time and access to certain things that we can help with. It makes a difference. Some of us value our children. Some of us value material things as well. What gives you life meaning to you, Mr. Terry? Can we ask it? For me, it's chocolate. I mean, it's just...
Well, that fits into what I was going to say. I think if I was taught to do this, if we reflect and look very, very closely at the meaning of the word happiness, then that, I believe, should become the center. Not in a self-centered way, but just becoming aware that, like, doing things for other people makes me happy. So why wouldn't I help somebody? You know, I've been on a plane just recently and saw it just happened to be a very, very short person that had a carry-on bag to go up in the overhead. And I was about 2 rows back, and I hesitated for a moment to watch, and nobody was going to help them. And for some reason, they choose to not say, could you give me a hand? And I thought, this is different. So I just got up and I went over and I put the bag up there and went back and sat down.
Thank you for that, too. I couldn't reach it.
I know. You're welcome. I can tell you. But then I don't know what exactly to call it, but I just felt content and happy that I chose to do that. Not in any way that I'm better than anybody. It's not a comparative thing. It's not a competitive thing. It's a matter of, I've learned over the years what kinds of things make me feel good about the fact that I'm here on this planet, that I'm alive.
Maybe not necessarily you, but if I may just pick up on that, only because I've observed something, well, similar examples recently. The hesitation of people because of the changing times we're in. You know, they would normally go to offer, but because of the societies that we've developed, where I'm not sure how that's going to be received, or they think I'm going to be intrusive and this and that. Do I want to steal something? And so we hesitate, and we're losing that level of concern.
But actually, a way to deal with that I talk to my clients quite a bit, and it sounds too intense. It's out of psychology. It talks about ask permission. And it sounds odd to ask permission, but the idea is for me to say to that person, as I did, can I give you a hand? Do you want any help?
But
once they say yes, you've actually formed a bond.
No, fair enough. But even so, even in asking permission, you know, would you like to help with that? Can I help you with that?
Yeah.
You watch people's countenance change. In the past, it would be without hesitation. People would come and they would do it, and you didn't have to ask permission. Now we ask, but even in the asking of permission, people will respond. Well, in the instances that I've observed in the last recently, deliberately observed, it was 4 times, and 3 out of the 4 times, the people said no. Well, I got it. Well, that bag is 500 pounds and you were 15 pounds. There's no way you're going to pick that up. All right? How you got to that point? But the immediate response was no, not because of independence, but because of this renewed sort of sense of, well, society is now bad. Dr. Bond?
Yeah, well, I encountered that a lot, especially when I lived overseas.
Mm.
But I think you can't change other people's behaviors, so I think it's important to focus on what you can do. From taking that away, even if the person says no, we can be like,
okay,
they're crazy, I can't believe they'd be so selfish and so worried about this. Or just, I did what I could.
Right.
I offered.
Mm-hmm.
So self-reflection then, right? From that perspective, we are, like Mr. Terry said, innately kind, good, generous, and your first response is, let me go and help. Open the door. There's a little lady who needs the help or something, you jump in. Because of that's, I think people are inherently good. Maybe it's the news, maybe it's the new president. I don't know. Maybe different reasons.
don't go there.
Why we're behaving the way we do, but not change that.
Asking for permission shows respect for the other person's autonomy, right? And so you don't know if that person may have been working out and has been waiting, and this means a lot to them. For you to just go grab the bag and put it up there takes away their opportunity to be able to do something.
Right.
And so that's where asking permission is important, whether they look capable or not.
Yeah.
It just shows respect for their autonomy.
And I like that. Give them an opportunity to, whether it's your child trying to do something, as parents, we jump in, give me that. We want to be helpful. We don't mean to devalue them.
Well, especially as parents, you want to see what they do because you want to see how they're thinking about things. So, So in the horse therapy that I do, we have something called practicing the pause. And that's, in the moment, just kind of like, wait, what is actually going on here? Right, and just kind of stopping just to think about what's happening and what the best move is, especially if we are the helper kind.
Right,
and it's important to stay tuned with people too. I had a physical limitation for one of my trips that I took last year, and I couldn't carry luggage to the airport. So I could get a porter that could take me to the airport, but I couldn't lift anything within the airport. So I was kind of making eye contact with people, and I'm not shy to ask people to help me. But there were a lot of kind souls, and it really heartened me about human beings, because you hear a lot, you see so much bad stuff in the news. But there really were a lot of people, but they were doing this dance like, are you okay? I didn't look in any way frail, but I actually was. Yeah. And so I was looking for friendly people to help me, because I couldn't even lift something the size of this purse, really, I couldn't lift anything. Yeah. So I had this it was just from Miami, but that's a long day when you look at how many hours you wait in an airport. So I was kind of looking at people, and people would make eye contact with me. Some people looked away, but then other people helped me to lift my carry-on in the plane, to do other little things for me. And gosh, I was knocked out by how much people wanted to help. So stay tuned in the world instead of looking at your phone with who might need you on a trip. And, be willing to engage, and you'd be surprised how you can make connections in the world like that. And I was really gratified by that. Yeah. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to give help, but you have to stay tuned into the world. And maybe not look at your phone every minute that you're in. So I got through that quickly. But now when I'm traveling, I look around to see, is there a mother that might need a hand with their child? Instead of judging and saying, wow, that kid's really loud. Is there someone that needs help with a pet carrier? I mean, I'm not Superwoman, but having been through that experience really humbled me and helped me realize, hey, I can be helpful. And I might overstep my boundaries sometime. There might be an awkward moment, but helping feels good. And there's people that might need your help that you might not realize it.
So with that, I was thinking, as Mr. Terry was sharing, the idea of self-reflection. I think many of us are, as you said, they're more kind people, despite what the news would say, just despite what a narrative may be painted elsewhere. Are we normally the ones to be willing to help, but for whatever reason we become jaded? Maybe in this year, as we sort of look at a period of self-reflection, hey, I want to get back there. I want to be that person. I can change me and how I respond. So let me step up and say, let me get the door for you. If they say no, well, hey, I've done my part. So if more of us are doing good, there'll be less of us that aren't.
Yeah. I'm definitely a big believer in you get back what you put out there.
So what you read,
and so even if it's not that person that looks up and says thank you, that you've helped someone, we'll pass it on. A lot of times with clients, especially, when there is like anxiety with interpersonal situations, I'll be like, when you're checking out, smile and ask the cashier how she's doing. A lot of them are willing to have small talk. Sometimes they won't, and I do warn my clients about that. But those little interactions can really increase positivity and just fulfillment in your, in small ways every day to boost everything overall.
But you said something about that, practicing the pause and the idea that some of us, we, not just proactive, we respond without thinking.
Call it reacting.
Yeah, I was trying to make it. And we jump right in there.
Yeah. You just made me think about an amazing experience I had so many years ago. It was a workshop that was really well done. And one of the things that the person running the workshop did was he had us pair off, face each other, and one person would just ask the question, "Who are you?" But what they set up was, in your answer, you cannot say any kind of behavior whatsoever. What you do doesn't count. You can't say, I'm a counselor, or I'm a fisherman, or I'm, whatever it might be. And it was challenging people. And then the other side of it, which was very interesting psychologically, was as soon as the person felt they answered who they were, you're to look at them again and say, no, but who are you? And to continually, and this was for 15 minutes, which is a long time, to continually ask, who are you? By the end of that 15 minutes, almost half the people in the room were in tears. And it was primarily because a lot of us became aware of how little we knew ourselves. How do you answer somebody when all the external, where you live and if you're married or not and what kind of job you got, all the sort of external stuff is gone. Who are you is like, whoa.
So, Terry, who are you?
I don't have a clue. Especially when I sit near you. I don't have an idea who I am.
No, but it's true, though. We all sort of look at our jobs and maybe the roles we play as that's who we are,
Yeah.
But I see.
Well, and I think that's where the being open to experiences is something that I think is really important as well. Because it gives you a chance to look at other things. A lot of times we have very set beliefs on who we are and what we should do and what we should do and what we want to do. Like I think I've shared on here many times, I initially wanted to work for the police. I was going to fix the world by working with the police. Dead set on it for years. But being open to new experiences and reflecting on what's actually important to me, how I want to change the world. It takes reflecting on that and being open to looking at other paths to get to where you want to be. And I think that's really important, like being open to new experiences, trying new things in order to really build your life and being okay with things changing. Your priorities initially may be more career as you get older and may shift more to family or shift back to dogs or whatever it is, or shift from dogs to family. But I think that's where kind of looking at what's important to you is so beneficial. And taking time to really think about who you are and what you bring to the table as well.
All right. Well, when we come back from our break, in this notion of importance of self-reflection, our precursor to success, I always think of values. What are your values, and how does that sort of not just define you but motivate you? How's that reflected in you? And is it that you say, but I value this, but is your action sort of indicative of that value? And that need to fix the world from that perspective of that young person who's ambitious and wants to right all the wrongs and correct all the ills, to that person who's much older now and jaded. How do we get from one to the other, and can we reverse? That's the pensive things we meditate as we go to the break. 949-8037 if you want to call and share your thoughts with us for our monthly Mental Health Matters. Come right back after the 1 p.m. headline news. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Let's read the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
A police investigation has been launched into the drowning death of an East End toddler. Police say officers were dispatched shortly before 6 p.m. on Friday, January 4th, to reports of a missing child off Austin Connolly Drive in East End. Shortly after officers arrived on the scene, police were informed that the child had been found by a family member in the water along the shoreline. A girl less than 2 years old was taken to the Cayman Islands hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, an 18-year-old Saudi woman who fled her family at the weekend has left Bangkok airport under the care of the UN Refugee Agency. The head of Thailand's immigration police says Thai immigration officials had tried to return Rahaf Mohammed Al Quanan, 18, to Kuwait, where her family is, but she refused to board a flight today and barricaded herself into her airport hotel room. She said she feared her family would kill her as she had renounced Islam. Actor Kevin Spacey has appeared in court to face a charge of indecent assault and battery stemming from an allegation of groping in 2016. A not guilty plea was entered on the two-time Oscar winner's behalf by his lawyers during the hearing in the U.S. state of Massachusetts. He is accused of sexually assaulting an 18-year-old male after plying him with alcohol at a bar in Nantucket in 2016. And Olivia Colman and Christian Bale were amongst the winners at this year's Golden Globes Awards in Los Angeles, hosted by Sandra Oh. Oh also won Best Actress in a TV drama for her part in the BBC's Killing Eve, and Richard Madden took the award for Best Actor in a TV drama for his role in Bodyguard. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. It is our monthly mental health matters, and in the studio with Dr. Alexandra Bodden, Mr. Terry Delina, Dr. Colleen Brown, together with Ms. Heather Lockhart, and to talk about the importance of self-reflection, that precursor to success. I was asking just prior to the break the idea of values, because many of us have certain things that are, for us, we're uncompromising. This is important to us, and maybe the ethos that has permeated our homes for generations. It may be that thing that a mentor introduced us to. We need to have a more, sort of a respect for time and timeliness, whatever that thing is, and it drives us. As I ask about values and how it informs us, and as we look at it from the point of self-reflection, can we be so focused on a particular value that we lose sight of its importance and maybe get off track? I use time as an example because I know it's important to many of us, and no matter our wealth, I don't believe we're capable of buying in a second. But I have a question later on. Who wants to jump in first? The handsome gentleman to my left with the, former cover of GQ, or I don't know, Mr. Physique.
It's good for the ego. Good for the ego.
Hey, positive reinforcement.
One of the things that comes to my mind all the time is balance. To be able to bring in some balance, and I think it's true in regard to reflection too, because I think it was you actually who referenced. Why is it sometimes we spend so much time thinking about doing things and not getting out there doing them? And I think that's what I mean about balance. We got to realize, okay, I've been thinking about this for a while. Am I going to go ahead and do it today or not? And then go ahead and get active and say, I'll find out. And sometimes what we learn is, I don't want to do that. And that's perfectly fine. It's a great experience. You've learned it, and you move on. You don't say, I've heard people say, I made the mistake of trying such and such one time. And I think, no. Why is it a mistake? You tried it, didn't work, you go on. You taste the food. If you don't like it, you don't eat it again. It's that simple. Sometimes I think we overdo it. But in the reflecting thing, again, to balance it, because with reflecting the past, reflecting the future, and thinking about, quote, where my feet are right now, we don't want to lose track of enjoying life. To just have a smile on our face and walk down the road, nod hello to somebody, and feel good about that. You know, and maybe there's a degree of reflection in it that is just fully aware of what's going on right now and what I'm enjoying, what makes me smile.
Do you think those values that we have, or well, two questions first. Do you think we all have particular values? Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 10, you know, that drive us, that inform us, that's that thing by which we judge all our actions and others, by which we help to inform our decisions?
I think, I mean, there's no doubt values are incredibly important. I'm never going to negate that. I think we need to be careful of what a value is doing for us currently. I had certain values, what some people call belief systems, in my head about certain things when I was a kid growing up in Detroit, and literally even how you walk down the street. Well, at one point I had to look at that and say, is that still working for me? No, not at all. I'm in a whole different community, a whole different culture. It's safer here than any place I've ever been in my life. I have all these things. I can walk down the street very differently now than I did then. So it's bringing in some balance to those kinds of things to decide, how do I want to go about doing these things?
That's a really excellent point, Terry. And I sometimes ask clients because they'll have a conflict with their values. Something they're doing seems to be clashing with their value system. So we'll sometimes have a conversation about whose values are these? Are these deeply held values that belong to your, quote, family, and the parents are long deceased? And maybe they have grown and morphed into their own value system for their own life, for their own family, and it's causing a problem because it doesn't really mesh with them anymore. And maybe they are 50, 60 years out of something that's been really kind of baked into them that they don't really believe in anymore. And that's creating a problem in their life. So just checking in with yourself. We change and morph in our lives, as Dr. Bodden was mentioning. So what are your current values? Are they serving you? Are they current? So just this self-awareness of who am I today? At whatever age you are, whether you're 15, 20, 30, whatever. Dr. Brown works with lots of adolescents. I'm sure there's a lot going on there with values and who they're becoming and developing their own sense of identity. So are your values serving you? Not that they're going to change every week, but who are you? That question that you brought up is so fascinating.
And the huge discomfort in confusion.
Yes.
And especially I think of adolescence, which the job description of adolescence is confusion. It's just such an incredibly difficult time in life. But one thing I learned that has been very valuable to me, and I try to share this with people quite often, even though confusion's uncomfortable, it's a great place to be because it's the last stage before decision. So you've been sitting around wondering, should I quit my job? Should I marry this person? Should I? All these things. And you gather information, and it piles up to where you got this huge amount of information, and it's got you confused as anything. To have the courage to say, I'm really glad I'm confused right now because I'm done gathering information, I'm reviewing it all, and I'm going to make a decision, which is something I think scares most of us more than anything, having to make a decision.
But let me ask them, because I love... Maybe that's why I got a talk show job. I love talking. I love interacting. Should I reflect this? Realize that I do like talking. No, just kidding. Values and confusion. If we have these, and I'm just thinking of people listening that may not quite come in at the right time in the conversation. Are we saying then that a person's changing values, we can reevaluate where we are, what's important. But if the values are changing and even flowing with the tide, are we becoming wishy-washy? Or are there some values that stand the test of time? Honesty, integrity, faithfulness in honoring your commitments. Remember a day when the handshake of the two individuals was better than whatever was signed on paper? Now it's, we get 5 Philadelphia lawyers to put together a contract because we want to weigh out just in case. What are we saying? Where is that value that is unshakable, and where is it that is changing because we're reevaluating?
Well, I think that something to consider was I think there are some values that are very concrete and that don't change. There are some that are going to change over time. I think Tara gave a very good example about. I can definitely relate to the idea of changing society with me moving from the Philadelphia area to here. It's very different, so therefore there's certain things about me that will change and my values will change. However, there's some that are going to be core values that are very important to you. I think something to consider, something that can be very difficult with living by values, is just life in general. I keep going back to thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the fact that, so basically what that comes down to is the fact that you have to meet your basic needs and be able to have a roof over your head and be able to, have these basic things before you can really think about the bigger issues. And I think that sometimes that's what creates the struggle in us, is because in order for me to pay my bills, I have to do some things that may not be aligned up with my values, right? But I have to do that so that I can then therefore get to that point where I can look at values and things like that. But I think that just shows even more the importance of looking at values, because you can always look at all of your values, find one to focus on when you're trying to go through the struggle, trying to go through life, and find one that has stayed the same over time, because those are more likely the ones that are most important to you. And then therefore you can feel more like you're living in line with something that's very important to you.
But then if you don't have certain, for one of the values, let's take the business one. Not to pick on business people, but there's this thing before her. Let's just use a lady. She's a businessman as well. So she has a decision to make. She can do this thing that is legal, but for her, maybe unethical. Let's just use it. But it's going to make a huge profit, whatever that thing is. But she has a value system. Do I do this and make a huge profit, get a big dividend, for the shareholders, a huge bonus for the staff, the job, whatever? Or do I say, it's not right?
Well, I think that's going to depend on her values.
Okay.
She may not have the same values. Like when you're giving that example, it's pretty clear to you the honesty is a value of yours, right? Yeah. Because the way you're giving that example, it's important to you that that woman make an honest decision. So you can see actually already coming through. That's something. If we were in counseling, I would say I could see that coming through in your examples. That honesty may be something that's very important to you. There's a value right there. But for her, in that example, maybe honesty is not important to her.
Billy Joel,
maybe money is.
Yeah, honesty. What is that Billy Joel song?
And in coaching, when things like this come up that are very difficult, some of the questions we ask her, can you live with this decision? What might happen if you make this decision, which seems to not align with your values? What might happen down the line for you? Not talking about legal repercussions, although this would come, but within yourself. Yeah. Obviously, the feelings might be guilt, self-recrimination, and when they're doing reflection later, this might be very hard for them to live with. Right. If the value was there of honesty.
Right. So, and I asked that, and I appreciate it, because that's pure self-reflection as we're looking at this now, and many of us are thinking of, what drives us, what's of value to us, and as Terry's point to, I got to make a decision, now I'm confused. For me, if you're confused, me personally, if you're confused about something, you don't have enough information. For some people, they've had too much. For me, we need more. What are the variables to shake out, Dr. Watton?
So when our behaviors don't line up with our attitudes or our values, we experience something called cognitive dissonance, which is that it's an uncomfortable feeling. And I think that that's a great time to know that it's a time to self-reflect and see what's going on. Because either our attitudes will shift and will justify following through with this thing we're not okay with, or we'll need to bring our behaviors back in line with what's going on. But that feeling, that confusion is uncomfortable. So I'd say when people notice those things, to pay attention. What's going on? What are you doing? What's happening around you? And what are you supposed to learn from this, especially if it's something that keeps coming up? Right? If there's something we're to learn from it, it will keep coming back. And that can be a time for us to look and see what's really going on here.
Self-reflection, that idea. And now, I was just thinking if someone's listening and considering, do we do this every New Year's Eve? Do we do it every week? Do we set aside every Friday evening or Saturday morning or whatever? Or is this, when you're looking at self-reflection, daily, weekly, monthly, every quarter, we put it in our calendars? Oh, today is a period of self-reflection. How do we go about it?
Yeah, so a lot of times milestones like New Year's Eve, anniversaries, different important things that come up, maybe a work anniversary, we tend to stop and look at things, or work will make us stop and look at it. Yeah. But a lot of times I find it really helpful to even just set aside a few minutes each day just to kind of reflect on what's going on, what went well, what didn't go well, what can we do differently.
Okay. So what I did, if I can ask of you, and this is where I find that every month I look forward to this because I benefit, and the feedback I get from people, they benefit. So I reached out to a couple of different individuals, and I found now, honestly, I didn't mean it to be, but I found that I go to them specifically for certain things. And we all read about the habits of highly successful people and so on. And these people have similar things. So one, bunch of employees on there, almost every day, there's an evaluation, an employee evaluation. That's self-reflection, right? The employee, how did the last year, last quarter, what's your sales report? Another one, he says, Sunday evening, 8 p.m., he sits in his study. What's the week going to look like? Do I have all my projects lined up? Do I have all the things in order? But he's been preparing from the week in order to Sunday he can just double check. Self-reflection, are these sort of part indicative of looking at it?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I found a study by Harvard Business Review as well that found that when people reflect on what makes them good leaders, especially in the mornings, throughout the day they'd show improved leadership as well. So that those few moments, and I'd say you got to figure out what works for you as well, right? Do people have different routines, different expectations, different responsibilities? So figuring out when is a good time for you. Like I'll often use a gratitude journal with clients to reflect on the good things that happened for the day. I encourage them to do it at night because that's what I like. I like at the end of the day. Okay, what were some good things that happened today? My mom loves to do it in the morning. Yeah. And she will then reflect on the day before, note the good things, and set intentions for the day. So there's different ways of doing it.
All right. Well,
people use calendars, people use gratitude jars, people use quizzes. I've got a client who sends themselves a quiz that once a month. I mean, people do a lot. Once they get into coaching, though, they're in the self-awareness world a little bit. But they don't coach forever. They're just building tools in coaching that they're going to take back into their own toolbox. So they usually start setting things up for themselves to not self-regulate, but just, kind of check in with themselves on a regular basis. So it's like working with a personal trainer. You're learning how to build those skills yourself. And self-awareness, this self-check-in, builds confidence. So most of the people that come into coaching, they want to become stronger and better for themselves, and they want to learn how to do it themselves. So I've had clients create a lot of different things to kind of look in the mirror on their own. They don't want to sit in my office and look in the mirror forever. So they don't want to invest in that kind of time and money. They want to learn how to do it themselves. So they've developed a lot of interesting ways to do this, and it's usually not every day. It kind of loses, I think it's a little bit of its power if they do it every day. So they usually do it maybe once a month or once a quarter is what I've seen be most successful for especially most leaders.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and there's a lot of tools online as well to help you evaluate the different areas of your life as well. And I've seen it done a couple different ways. And so I'll actually share an article on drbodden.com that actually helps you kind of evaluate yourself. And so this would be good for like the bigger evaluations like Ms. Heather was talking about on areas like spirituality, family, recreation, development, social, work life. And that we can kind of see where everything's at. It's a great way to just kind of check the temperature of where you're at.
drbodden.com, good place to check out so you can see all the stuff here, including what's on the Mental Health Matters. We'll take a final break for this segment. When we come back, could we ask, in addition to all the other things, helpful tips of people, the importance of self-reflection, how they go about it, and maybe someone listening and think, oh man, this seems like a lot of work. But maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but the value is there. 949-8037 if you want to call. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
This Health Flash is brought to you by Cleveland Clinic, Florida. Over 65 million people around the world have moderate or severe COPD, a family of diseases that includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Cleveland Clinic, Florida offers a wide range of management and treatment options for COPD, including programs focused on education, medication, smoking cessation, and pulmonary rehabilitation. A team of experts is ready to review your symptoms and test results to develop a comprehensive treatment plan. For more information, visit clevelandclinicflorida.org.
Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for the 7 a.m. news, brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
The public has been advised of road works today and tomorrow from early morning until evening, taking place on the Esterly-Tibbetts Highway near the Ritz-Carlton Bridge. Traffic heading into Georgetown will be affected, and motorists will be merging into one lane. Drivers have been asked to proceed with caution as road work is carried out. That's a one-lane closure on the Esterly-Tibbetts Highway near the Ritz-Carlton Bridge, heading into town today and tomorrow.
Country classics.
Well, I was born to coal miner's daughter.
On the road again. They're gonna put me in the movies.
Papa Top again.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso. Because you're mine, I walk the line. Well, I love them in
country classics.
Young love, first love.
You never count your money when you're sitting at the table.
If you enjoy classic country music, come hang out with Radio Cayman this Saturday, 3:30 to 6 p.m.
In the Mississippi cotton picking Delta town.
This Saturday afternoon, following American Country Countdown, 3:30 to 6 on Radio Cayman.
Just walk on by.
Wait on the corner.
Country classics.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for allowing us to be able to facilitate this on a monthly basis under the auspices of Dr. Alexandra Warden. We got Dr. Colleen Brown and Miss Heather Lockhart. Mr. Terry Delina was with us, but sometimes, people have jobs to do that they just have to get back, and I really say this often and sincerely. Our guests that come in here, I appreciate it. It's lunchtime. I don't know about some people, but that's the time that we like to eat, some of us, and have to eat. You have things to do, not just your jobs, but all the other things. And to come in and spend time with us, we really, really appreciate it. It can be challenging.
Such a pleasure to be here.
Well, it is for me. Thank you
for inviting me, both of you.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that as people think about this year, it is day 7 already of the first month of this year, and already lots of things have happened. Good things, bad things, challenging things, excited things that we're sort of looking forward to, and all sometimes on the same day. And how do we balance it? Today may be someone's anniversary for a marriage as well as a death or something. I mean, all sorts of things are happening. True. And are we cognizant? Are we mindful? Are we respectful? Are we reflecting to say, how can we, be a little bit better? Dr. Warden?
Yeah. No, and I think mindfulness is a great way to bring this into practice. And because that's a hot topic right now, but that really captures the idea of being right where you are and being in tune with what's going on for you and around you. So if people are interested in reading more about this topic, I think mindfulness is a great place to start.
If I may ask, though, as we look at the notion that, and I don't think, maybe I'm more than I realize, but I don't think that I'm one of those people that sit, on a stool and was that character from some animated show, look beyond what you see. But I think we need to just stop, be mindful, be pensive, reflect on certain things. We don't need to be that deep and philosophical, but we need to, as I ask you that, Susan reminds me there's a caller in the queue. I usually put on headsets to keep my hair in place, but you can put yours on to hear our guests. We have the good company of Dr. Alexandra Warden, Dr. Colleen Brown, and Miss Heather Lockhart. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you? Welcome, good afternoon. Our apologies sometimes, I think we paid our phone bill.
Hello?
Yes, sir. There you are.
I heard you talking earlier about mindfulness and self-reflection. One of the things that I think is really important is for people to realize that being raised in whatever particular family a person is raised in, they're kind of like pre-programmed with a certain number of ideas or conceptions or misconceptions about themselves and the world. And part of the growing up process is reviewing a lot of that material and either incorporating it or reviewing it and deciding it's not really useful for an adult's life and rejecting it. And that you don't just have the same political views as your parents, or you don't have the same moral views as your parents. You don't just kind of glom onto their reality. You individualize yourself from them, and as you become an adult and you form your own worldviews and your own opinions based on what works for you and based on what your reality is of the world. And that's a really important thing, because a lot of people, they just kind of grab on to whatever they were raised with, and they don't ever really look beyond that. And that is kind of shortchanging themselves. So I'll just let you guys and listen.
Well, thank you. And if you'll be mindful to our question, I'll be happy if you had a second. Do you think then that some of those values, those things, whether they're religious or political views that were held by your family that you no longer subscribe to, do you think those changing values could not just polarize or divide a society, but cause us to be less than what we can be? No? Oh, okay. Sometimes it's one of the questions. Dr. Brown?
I mean, I think I agree with what he's saying, and I think that that's sometimes when I work with adolescents and young adults, that's a lot of the work that I'm doing, is because a lot of times kids will come in, and the reason that they're having some, dissonance or feeling like they're not really understanding what's going on in the world is because they realize there are these bigger questions, and the stuff that they did believe growing up, they're like, wait, is this what I should be believing? And I explained to them that that is a normal part of development, to start to have bigger questions. And something that I think that is a great way of self-reflection, looking at values. I feel like I've said this a few times today, but because I am a person who lives far from where I've started, travel. If anybody can travel, because I think that that's something that, Dr. Bodden has heard me say a lot over the last few months. It's a Pennsylvania thing. Right? Or like I'm realizing there's certain Caymanian things that I didn't realize were here. And I think that that stuff's really interesting because it's made me self-reflect on like, why do I do this? Mm-hmm. Where did this come from? And things that I may not have realized before. And all that kind of stuff can really point me towards what's important to me and my purpose. And sometimes it may not seem that important, but it's where did this come from? And how does this, factor in and things like that. And I think that, being around people that are different or people that don't have the same values can be very, very important and make us reflect on our own a lot better.
I think it's a good time for us to reflect on what is important to us, but to be mindful, but also be respectful of differences, and not just to be tolerant and accommodating, but to be respectful. Mm-hmm. Some of us value certain things, and some of us, why is that important to you? How do we understand? Dr. Warden?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And so being mindful that values can change and opinions can change. And I think you asked about even like society and, and I'd say values can be expressed in different ways as well. And so having flexibility in our expectations of it, we might embody it one way at one time of our life or in one situation and then show it in another way at another time. So,
as you said, I was just thinking back onto the exercise on Vision 2008, took place way back when.
Yep.
I think that was a period of self-reflection. The country, took the opportunity to engage almost all facets of society to, hey, what is it that we would like the country to look like? What is important to us economically, environmentally, socially, politically, all these things. Self-reflection on a global scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really like what the caller said too. It's okay to reject something. Completely. That maybe your family really embraced. It's okay to create your own individual beliefs at a certain point in time, at all points in time, and say, who am I and what do I believe in? I really like that caller's
Yeah, man. Yeah, you always have some good input. And I think maybe the courage then to self-reflect, to look in it, and it may be that, you know, you hold to this thing that is important to you. Honestly, if I can pick up on myself. But all around you, you know, there's a gentleman that I admire greatly. He says, you know, you can't jump into a cesspool and expect to come out smelling like a rose. You know? And it's something to look at. One of those pensive thoughts that you meditate on now and again.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, Dr. Boyle.
Yeah, and I think in seeing if your behaviors and your values are lining up as well. Like when I teach classes, we cover a wide range of topics, and I think especially for people who haven't had the opportunity to travel, it's really important to kind of consider what your values are, what your beliefs are, and where they came from, and what they mean to you. A lot of my students, I think, got quite frustrated with me with one of the classes. Actually, it was to do with politics, until they realized that whatever they said, I actually asked the question opposite to it, whatever it was, and so they ended up having to answer the questions different ways, just to encourage them to think. So I would suggest people step away from the way we've always done it, or what we should do. Some of the ways we do things are good. I just didn't mean it like that. Not everything, but, you know, to think about where it comes from and what it means.
Yeah.
And why you're doing it, but also to step away from what you believe you should be doing, what you've always been told you should be doing, what you have internalized you're supposed to be doing, and really consider what makes you happy and what you want to do.
I saw a great exercise one long ago. You know, pick the thing that's important to you, and you know, argue that perspective. And everybody, you know, very passionate about this. Okay, well, you know, find the one that's complete opposite and argue that, and so you get a perspective from someone else's lens.
Well, it's interesting. I actually had to do an argumentative paper in high school that was pro-capital punishment. Yeah. But in having to write a 12-page paper to support capital punishment, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. So it's like, oh, it's murder, you can't do that. But actually, there are a lot of pros to it. I think I won that debate. Yeah. But it makes you kind of think about things and question things, you know, and even just kind of talking with people with different opinions will help you further develop yours.
Well, I say this, that we live in a great world. We have, you know, as Mr. Heather said earlier, some wonderful people, you know, perfect strangers that you probably will never see again, who are there to be helpful. In Cayman in particular, all the different nationalities, all the different people, what a wonderful place to live. And as we reflect, maybe this period of self-reflection gives us a chance to say, you know, what can we do to make ourselves better? If each one improves him or herself, wow, maybe all will improve, right? That's it. Can't look forward enough to the next month's discussion. But Susan saying to me, okay, now, you know, we're getting close to the end. Perhaps as we get to the discussion, time goes fast, right, Ms. Heather?
It really does.
Final closing thoughts, perhaps, Ms. Heather?
Final tips, if you want, for this year, if you're not already doing it, to participate in some self-reflection. Don't overthink it. You can Google some questions, put it in your calendar, put it in your phone, start anywhere. But be kind to yourself and think about what you want to get from it, and start anywhere.
Yeah, I would agree with schedule it, put it in your calendar, put it in your phone, because a lot of times when we say we're going to do things for ourselves, it's always last on the list. So therefore, if you schedule it like you schedule a meeting, it's going to get done.
Yep, put it in there, man. And Dr. Boyle?
Well, and I'd say that a great question to start with is actually one that Mr. Terry had alluded to. That was one that one of my old supervisors would use all the time, which is just, how's that working for you? You know, being honest and looking back and looking at what changes can be made. If every year you say you're going to go to the gym 3 times a week and it never happens, what's actually happening? You know, and being flexible and being open to new goals and new experiences and finding new ways of meeting those needs.
All right. Well, I think self-reflection is, you know, important for us. And as we look at it, however we term it, you know, I think we need to find ways to improve ourselves. You guys being here every month has certainly added to my quality of life. Thank you so much. And for those who are listening, you know, if we can help you, I say this with the greatest respect. The professionals here, if I say it improperly, they'll correct me. But please, there's no stigma having someone professional, competent, confidential that you can go to talk to. The ladies here are just fine examples of what exists in our small society with incredible resources. So please go out and chat. Don't care if you're 9 or 99. You know, you can always benefit from talking to someone, right, Dr. Brown?
Absolutely.
All right. And thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's important.
Yep.
Mental health, you know.
Yep.
Happy New Year
No
to you.
health without mental health.
There you go. Dr. Warden,
Yes,
man.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having us.
All right, let's pause and take a break. When you come back, hey, give me a call if you want. 949-8037 or a toll-free line at 1-800-534-8255.
It's 2019, and you know what they say? New year, new me.
Yeah, Bobo. For me, it's new year, new car.
For real? What you thinking of buying?
The new RAV4 from Vant Motors. It's one of the safest compact SUVs out there with enough room inside, which is good for my family and convincing my wife we need this. Plus, it's fuel efficient, fun to drive, and on top of that, it's on sale too.
Yeah, and I hear it's one of the best-selling SUVs on the market.
Cause you don't gotta spend more to do more. That's why I'm gonna get mine now, while they have a new stock to select from.
Do more in your RAV4. Save thousands on the all-new 2019 RAV4. Test drive yours today and see why the RAV4 is a best-selling SUV in Cayman. Available only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
Kirk Freeport would like to inform you that the Kirk Freeport Clearance Center in Town Center Plaza is closing for the month of January and will reopen again with a revamped line of stock in February. Our team are busy refreshing our stores for 2019. And when the Kirk Freeport Clearance Store is reopened in February, there will be a brand new assortment of products priced to clear from your favorite Kirk Freeport brands. Kirk Freeport Clearance Store, closed in January and reopening in February. Happy New Year from everyone at Kirk Freeport.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Did you know that the Department of Environmental Health operates a recycling program in the Cayman Islands? Recyclables such as number 1 and 2 plastics, tin and aluminum cans, cardboard, as well as glass and ceramic items are recycled on Grand Cayman by the DEH. Take these items to the recycling depots located at all Foster supermarkets, Kirk Market, and Hurley's Grand Harbor. Remember, keep the Cayman Islands clean, reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, please visit DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
We are Radio Cayman, and this is how we wake you up in the morning. Praise time on Radio Cayman.
Sing your praise to the Lord. Come on, everybody, stand up and sing one more. Hallelujah, give your praise to the Lord. We are united in Jesus Christ. We are the soldiers of the land.
Praise time.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
There's a meeting up in heaven. Roll call. It's a name in the Lamb's Book of Life. Roll call, brother, sister. Roll call. If you don't stop shouting, if you don't stop dancing, we're going to put you out of our church.
Praise time.
Jesus in the morning, yeah.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Your song flowed through my lips. Your work moved through my hands. Your thoughts stay on my mind. Live in me.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. And again, trust that you were able to listen, if not in its entirety, at least somewhat, to our monthly mental health matters. Very grateful to all the professionals joining us as we look at mental health. I say this very respectfully. Please, doesn't matter how important that thing is. It may be, very important, maybe very, in your mind, insignificant, inconsequential. But if it's niggling, if it's bothering you, if it was an issue with respect to your physical health, you probably at some point will go to see a physician, maybe your GP. Well, if it's something that is sort of making you feel out of sorts or a little down or however, don't ignore it. Go talk to, a counselor, a therapist, a mental health professional. Maybe start with a conversation with your GP. There's no stigma. It's actually very, very beneficial. Very grateful to Dr. Alexandra Borden for putting it together for us every month. if you think her dad is super smart, I think he'll agree with me when he said Dr. Borden is, incredibly gifted, not just intellectually, a remarkable lady. So honored to be able to work with her and producing this on a monthly basis. Yes, it's a bit of work, but it's good work. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. It's open line. We'll take your calls, have you join us, and share your views with us. It is Monday, and two things of quite almost unbelievable in a sense. Even though it's day 7 of the day 1 of the month, as it was the first month of the year, a fellow said to me this morning, it's almost as if the new year isn't a new year. It's almost as if it's the second quarter, and he's approaching June almost. He's saying that not just because of the constant pace, the seemingly lack of celebration and downtime that traditionally he experienced, normally in the past, over this time. More festive, people are a little bit more relaxed, jovial, they celebrate a little bit more, not necessarily with food and libation, but just rested. He didn't experience that. Maybe it's the same with you, maybe it wasn't. Now, I share that to say that in our discussion, as he arranged it, a number of individuals, some of whom are just about to travel back to university, some of whom put through a few little, I call it bullet points, because they've already left. Their concerns for one, our environment, and two, our economic situation. He shared that when we look at the issue of the port, we look at the issue of the proposal up in the Barcas area. Increasingly, too many of us are seeing these things as issues that only affect those people or that segment of society or that area of the country, but they, in his mind, should be national issues. So I want to ask of you, as I asked of him in particular, are these issues national issues? Is the issue of what we're doing with the dump, not just the cost, not just the location, but the whole process, are those the few national issues that we have, or are they just simple issues and they're limited and confined to those areas? Are they, as he asks, issues that should be somehow within our ethos, within our constitution if necessary, within our legislation, that those issues are issues to be decided, at the very least deliberated by the populace, or are they issues for the government of the day? And he said, he attended one of the meetings in relation to the Barcas issue. He said he sat there and listened and, looked at some of the people who were there, tried to understand some of the things that were being said. And he came away thinking, well, is this an issue that is, looking at a particular area, the cost of progress and development, and it's going to bring economic benefit to many, perhaps more to some than to others, but, is it different from what we did along 7 Mile Beach? Is it different from what we're doing in other parts of the country? Or is it that we're failing to acknowledge that maybe we didn't do some things as properly as we could, and so as we continue to develop, whether it's in these unpopulated, undeveloped areas, whether it's on Camelback or Little Cayman, or we're redeveloping in some areas, are we still failing to acknowledge that mistakes were made or things could have been done a lot better? Maybe brought greater windfalls to those who were the developers, perhaps greater benefits to the country in terms of employment and taxes. And he shared, is it an issue that is being looked at in isolation? Let's go to our phones though and welcome this next caller. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Sterling. How are you?
Very thankful. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Had a beautiful day in the Cayman.
Oh man, I was glad for the rain this morning. I know some who were caught off guard and ended up having to affect their work day, but that's how it is, huh?
That's how it is. Hey, that's God's work. You can't trouble that. You
Yep.
that alone.
There it is.
Yeah. Sterling, a couple days ago, the cruise ship was in and their riders was on a road riding their bicycles. Sterling, what I can't understand is that you're going to go on a cruise, and then when you get to another man's country, you're going to take your bicycles. The boat has a bicycle program on the boat there. You can take off and come off and ride and enjoy the island and tour the island by bicycle. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, Sterling, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I would like someone to tell me. When these guys come on our island and ride their bicycles, do they have any insurance? Are their bicycles licensed to ride in the Cayman Island? Because, Sterling, you know, if when those guys ever get hurt on our roads, you know what's going to be, right? A big lawsuit on our tourism. You understand?
I listen to you.
I just want to plead today that if these guys want to come to my island, and if it's just that one particular boat in that they're sailing, and so say, for example, the boat got about 800 people on it, right? And some of them is pre-booked on for tours by the private bookers and so forth, and then you got the rest now who's going to try to get a little tour or a beach trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you got over a little bit, probably like two dozen and a half riders going to come off the boat, and they're going to ride and do that tour, that we, the taxi drivers, charge $25 per person. Now, I think it's going to be $25 now at the port. $25 per person. That same tour those guys are riding those bicycles too. That's the tour that we do for those guys. So what I'm saying is, that is not really fair to the people of this island, because like the radio station was talking about this morning in regards to these boats are looking for their best interest. They have everything on those boats that they need to an extent. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to come off of it if they don't want to. But some of them just want to hear the word of Cayman Islands, and they want to come to Cayman to see what it's all about and enjoy the moment to an extent, or just sit on the boat and say, well, I was in the Cayman Island water. I use my binoculars and I look around the island on the boat, and it looks good. You know, I'm going to come back by air to enjoy it a few days instead of just one day. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Sterling, I really truly feel, no disrespect to whoever's in charge of that boat, bringing these guys here on their bicycles. We do not have the roads for these guys to be riding these bicycles on our streets. And you don't know America. America is sue, sue, sue. You understand? Not Mary Sue, but sue, sue, sue. You know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that I need to cut out, because everybody's going to come off that cruise ship. That is $25 less for a taxi driver or a tour bus to get while they're here on this island. So I want to know how they can say that we can benefit from tourism tremendously if we get a pair and we have an extra hour and this and that and that. That's not true, Sterling. Take the bicycles off our roads. I ride bicycles, Sterling, and since I had my knee done, I don't ride bicycle like I used to. I have to ride the mobile one inside of my house.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So these guys are risking their lives when they come on our roads and ride that bicycle. It is dangerous. And another thing, Mr. Daddy Dart, has these guys on the road with these two-wheel, I don't know what you even call them. Do you know what they call them?
I don't know if it's...
I don't even know the name.
Yeah, segways, I think, something like that.
Segways or something. I have seen visitors fall down on the 7-mile road, on the side of the road. It is a shame. There shouldn't be on our roads as well, too, because we have no roads for these things, Sterling. So I am asking my government, especially in the tourism section, they need to look into these things for our roads, because we got guys out here that locally trying to ride a bicycle, trying to exercise, and they're being almost swiped off almost every morning. I see it every morning when I come into work 6 o'clock in the morning. These guys, ladies out here trying to walk, cars out here want to overtake you in a one lane, and so forth and so forth. So if we hit one of those visitors off of those cruise ships, Sterling, we are in trouble. We are in trouble. You hear me? So I just hope that something can be done about that. They need to stop bringing their bicycles to our island, because that is a $25 for 2,500 people on our roads, riding our roads, doing the sightseeing for free. And our taxi drivers have to can't go home with $25. I don't think so, Sterling.
Do you know what they pay, or if they pay when they leave the cruise ship to use the bicycles? Is it part of their tour, or do they pay a fee?
I can't tell you that one, Sterling. I really don't have any proof of that. If they pay to come off and ride their bicycles on the island. I don't have any proof of that.
Right.
Who can answer that question now? I wish someone is listening that they can come and tell us yes to pay in the cruise ship, to come and ride on my island and pay in the cruise ship. I don't think so. That is not. If that's what they're doing, it's not right. It is definitely not right to ask the people of this island. We depend on tourism. And if they say that tourism is going to be such a great more in finance for us to be builders here in this airport and so forth and so forth, they are lying to us. Who is gaining? That's what I want to know, who is gaining. We have to live here, Sterling. We ain't going nowhere. You understand? So I would like to know that question too. Do they pay the cruise ship to come off on those bicycles? Do they rent the bicycles on the boat? You know, Sterling, probably 10 to 1.
Right.
10 to 1, they probably rent those bicycles off the cruise ship.
Chances are, and there, as you shared, there are many people listening who are avid cruisers who would probably have an insight. But the government has shared that this move to build the cruise dock is, in the country's best interests, and they're prepared to do it. Maybe some would say, they're hanging their political futures on it. How do you, if not just you specifically, but how do you say to the government if you're convinced that it is not the best move at this time and so on? How do you get their attention, or how do you accept their view? What is it that we need to do to be able to understand what's best?
Sterling, I would love to know how we can get their attention, because from the 26th of September until today, they haven't came back on yet and had another meeting with all the questions that it was asked at that meeting that particular night. And September's around the corner again, and they haven't came up and tell us anything. They haven't had no meetings with us ever since, and they're not coming to the radio and discussing anything because they know that we're going to bombard them on the radio. We're going to have to take 3 days on the radio to get all the questions that we want, like questions answered. And in talking about the pier, the port, Sterling, I am not saying we may not need a port in the Cayman Islands, but I really truly can't see it being put downtown Georgetown. As you see in December, what happened on December. Sterling, I'm 62 years old, and I live in Cayman. All of my life except for 10 years in Florida. And I have never seen the seagrass or the seaweed, where you want to call it, in my roads of Georgetown in my all-living life here in the Cayman Islands. I rode bicycles to that market every week to get turtle meat from Mr. Henry Bush, my mother, and never back up on the seaweed in my Georgetown road. So that tells me that God is talking to us. Three that we had this Saturday that had a chaos at the airport with whatever. Sterling, God is talking and no one is looking. You remember when Mary was expecting Jesus to come to visit, and Jesus said to her in many different forms, and she refused to pay them in the matter expense. Jesus is coming to visit me. Jesus came to her, but she didn't see Jesus in those people. So we need to sit down and think for a second that all the big things that Cayman is asking for and looking for, not everything big is good. And the first impression that we give our visitors, Sterling, we may not get a second chance to do it. I heard this, Mr. McKeever Bush, no disrespect to that gentleman. He can have all the vision he wants. I got mine, and a lot of other people got their vision. Some can come forward, and some can't come forward. But he mentioned in the guides to the 50th floor hotel, and mentioned our children. Sterling, where are the children? And who are the children for this Cayman Island? Because I work in the school system. We need to stop putting our children in this political arena. It is not working. Take the children out and do what we have to do for our children. Our children is our future, but as long as you use them for a platform to get where you want to get, it's not going to work. Our children is suffering educational-wise. I just asked the government today, stop talking about our children. Take 10 of the children home one weekend and ask those 10 kids what they would like to become when they grow up. Ask them when last they had a good meal. Ask them if they have water, electricity. Ask them if they have a school book. Do they have a belt put in their pants? That's what we need to take these kids home and ask them, these government people, because they'll sit down in the air-conditioned office and make all the decisions, and after we put them in, they don't need us no more. But I don't think so, Sterling. I don't think so. But as long as they're ready to give me permission to run my mouth, I'm going to run it until they throw me off.
Well, I think it's important that you and others like you take the opportunity to advocate for your position. Without open and constructive dialogue, how can we really champion a democracy? But let me ask, though, of you, when we hear it being quoted from the government statistics that, was it 80% of our revenues come from the stay-over tourists and 20% comes from the cruise lines, and yet we seem to be spending a lot. Is that to realign it so that we're not so dependent on the stay-over tourists and maybe create a better balance with respect to the cruise aspect, or is it that we're misguided? I mean, how do you assess that and interpret it?
We are being misguided. We are being misguided. That's the top. That's full stop right there. Misguided.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they know the situation, but it's because of their big officials coming and saying, "No, we can do this and we can do that," and they're gonna come and say, "You know what? That'd be good for the country."
Mm.
Who is the country? We do. We are the people of the country. The
Yes,
country
ma'am.
can't move without us. You understand? In Sterling, I had a visitor told me that this weekend down here. She said the old man is gone. She has a condo here. She said the old man is gone, and it's sad. It is sad.
Well,
I don't know where we're going, but I tell you what, if we don't hurry, stop drinking our coffee and start smelling it, let me tell you something. Mr. Nakeba talk about he don't want to go back to no trash bins. There's going to be a lot of them coming out here in the near future. And that's why Peter St. James has a bed that made out of the silver patch rope. Let me tell you something. We better start making some of them because if they talk about future for our children, they need to invest more in education and stop playing the bullhorn of our children, stop using our children.
Right.
And I probably got all beat up for this afternoon, but it's okay. I have to live here.
yeah. Well, thank you for being so courageous. Thank you very much. All right, and enjoy your afternoon. May it be safe as well. Let's take one more call before we go to our news. Welcome. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year to you,
Happy New Year to you, Sterling. This is Emil Levy from Bordentown.
Mr. Lever. Good to hear from you, sir.
Yes, my friend. I want to echo the sentiments of the caller that just got off the air, and I want to let the public know I agree with that caller. Not only that, I called to agree with the caller, but I also called to answer the question concerning the bicycles and the people coming off the cruise ship. Yes, caller, and yes, public. Those people that is riding on our island on those bicycles is paying for that on the cruise ship. It is part of a tour, what is called a pre-book system, so to speak. They come off, but they have to pay for the bicycle tour on the island. They ride on the island, and we, the people of the Cayman Island, is receiving no money from that venture. I know it because I worked out there on the waterfront for over 15 years, and I know what's going on. Caller, you are 100% right for being so concerned, not only for being so concerned, but for voicing your opinion, for standing up strong and letting the whole entire world know how you feel. Our island is gone astray. The people on my island is in sufferation. When I say sufferation, I mean many of our people are in sufferation and is being disenfranchised. Our educational system is run amok. Our Department of Environmental Health is run amok. And our hospital and many more things on our island is not for the benefit of the Cayman Island people. There's no genuine Cayman Island people upliftment. There's no such thing as a destruction of mosquito program. There's research, but not destruction. Just like that, our people are being left behind. Politicians after politicians, government after government. The only thing that they are greatly successful at doing is raising cash more higher and causing more pain and suffering to the people of the Cayman Islands. For the amount of money that our people takes in, the government that is, the different department takes in, it really genuinely doesn't benefit our children, our homeless, our jobless, our people that need an upliftment. Look at us in the year 2019. We still got people cleaning bush on the side of the road. We still got women with children. They go hungry. Children that go hungry to school. We are disenfranchised, caller. I appreciate you calling. I don't call much on the phone. As a matter of fact, this is my second time calling in. But I have a lot to say to my people. Usually, I used to write letters in the paper.
Yes, sir.
But that has come to a halt for a specific reason, of which I will call in and tell you all about it another time. But as for now, everyone that hears my voice today, especially if you're a Caymanian or you love the Cayman Islands, we need a better system, a better way forward, a better government. Hopefully I will be part of that new government real soon. In the meantime, folks, call in. Let Sterling hear your grievances. Stand up and be counted. Don't be coward. This is our island, and we need to be in full control of it. As it is right now, Sterling, you and I know exactly our position. Caller, I thank you for calling in, and I support what you said. And me and Leslie were here. I'll call again someday and talk more about what we really need.
Oh, well, I look forward very much, Mr. Emile S. Levy. And who knows, he may have inspired you and encouraged you to actively participate in our democracy, and I think nothing better. We're seeing two football teams on the pitch equal a match. What a wonderful game. When you got one team that is, so much better than the other one, it's a one-sided game. You don't enjoy it as much, even if you are the fan of that team. Well, when we come back, more talk today.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Charges are laid in two separate burglary cases from break-ins in West Bay. A 36-year-old has been charged with burglary and resisting arrest following a break-in on South Church Street on January 1st, while a 19-year-old is looking at charges stemming from a September burglary on Fountain Road in West Bay. The 36-year-old was scheduled to appear in court today, while the teen is set to appear in court tomorrow after being remanded into custody on Friday for charges of burglary, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. At least 7 people have died in the Alps during a weekend of heavy snow, with skiers facing a high avalanche risk in Austria, Germany and Italy. 2 separate avalanches killed 2 German skiers in Austria's Vorarlberg Mountains. A 3rd skier died in Pankow district near Salzburg. In Bavaria, a skier died when a tree collapsed near Bad Tölz. An avalanche killed a young woman in Bavaria's Taschenberg Mountains, and 2 climbers died in the Italian Alps. And Italy takes its dress code as a matter of permanent national priority. Each profession has its own official or de facto uniform. Italy's Interior Minister, Matteo Salvini, has chosen to defy the code by wearing shirts with police and fire service insignia. He says this is a sign of his support for the respective forces. But Article 498 of Italy's criminal code decrees that it's illegal to wear public officials' uniform or badges. The fines for transgression range from 154 to 929 euros. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037. Or toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. Invite you to be a part of our discussion. Share your thoughts with us. It's some open line. And there are a lot of interesting things unfolding in our society. A lot of people sharing their thoughts and their sentiments. Some, like the last two callers, with great courage and conviction, very publicly expressing their opinions. You may agree with them. You may say, well, I agree with some, but not all, or you may totally disagree. But that's the beauty of a democracy, where we can respectfully, publicly share our sentiments with a view to hopefully having some constructive dialogue. Now, as Mr. Levy just shared, and only call him by name because he identified himself, I respect that. Many times on the phone you say, well, that sounds like so and so. Well, it wasn't, but if they say who they are, then I think it's not anything other than the fact that they're willing to say, don't confuse anybody else now and mistaken it was my brother who called. Nope, it was me. But as he shared, maybe it'll encourage more of us to get actively involved in our public life, whether as potential candidates in an election, whether offering ourselves in service on some of the boards, whether more actively engaged in our churches or our schools, serving in the PTAs, whether we become members of different service clubs. Maybe we'll join some emerging entity that's looking after the environment. Maybe we'll establish something with a view that we need to bring people on board. It could be, like some have, the care of animals. It could be the protection and promotion of our children. Hey, if we're not actively engaged, if we're not prepared to be that beacon in our society, then who are we going to fault? 8949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Now, interestingly, I sit in this job sometimes, and I honestly appreciate how taxing and demanding some of our lives are in this very small, beautiful, wonderful place. And to be able to have so many of you share some of your sentiments, some just for information, some with a view, as they've shared, well, hopefully you'll do something with this, knowing full well that it's probably difficult to do something with that little bit of information, even if it's as exhaustive as they think it is, only because of the nature of it. But what a young fella shared earlier that has me considering, if as is alleged by so many, well, everybody knows this, everybody knows that that's happening. If that is the case, and we all know, how is it that some of us can claim, sometimes honestly, well, I didn't know that. How is it that some of us, even though we know it, and we know that everybody knows it, but nobody is doing anything about it, whatever that thing is? Maybe it's the alleged drug dealing or illegal activity, the numbers selling, the gambling. Maybe it's the alleged, corrupt practices of the businessman or the public official. Maybe it's this or that. Now, he said, unfortunately, sometimes when you champion these things, people talk about being naive and idealistic. But if we look at, as he shared, some of the sentiments globally from different parts of the world where there is this expectation that in order to get ahead, you got to be willing to partake of the illicit activity, the graft, the greed, the corrupt practices. And in others, well, those things are frowned upon by that society. So it is the sort of outcast who engages in those things as opposed to it being the norm. And he wonders to what extent in our own society the norm is the honest, forthright act, or is the norm that complicit, duplicitous sort of illegal, immoral, unethical behavior? Because end of the day, to the victor go the spoils, and you win at all costs mentality. Now, he shared that, in his position, yes, he can take sort of that perspective because it's expected of him. He said, for instance, we all go to church, we all expect that the pastor will come into church and not be drunk. Pastor will come into church and be an honorable person, respectful of family and the congregation. If someone stumbles into church, whether it's a midweek service or it's the first service in the morning, and is in an inebriated state, we probably would have some sentiments, but we probably will go to the person and offer some help. Now, if that person was the pastor, for instance, we may look at it differently. And he shared that to say that in our society, it's seemingly that we have expectations of some people, and only if those expectations seem to be, not met, only an example of the pastor. But what about the politician? Why is it that we expect, and because we expect that, is that why it is that we expect the politician not to be honest? When he believes, he said honestly, that the politicians genuinely are trying to do the very best. Yes, they may have, misinformation, maybe if they've been misinformed, perhaps, in their zeal to ensure that the country moves forward, not just for 10 years, but for 100 years, they may get it wrong. But what are we doing to show them that we're supportive? And sometimes that support, as he shared, isn't only by agreeing to whatever policy or helping them to facilitate whatever program, but by drawing alongside and saying, hey, maybe we're making a misstep. Maybe we need to delay this thing in order to get it. Or, as he says, sometimes it may not be politically expedient to do the thing now, but it's better to do it now because now is when it's needed. But yes, it may be unpopular. And he believes the fault isn't so much or solely on the politician, it's on the rest of us. We're not, putting our hands in the mix, offering our sort of contributions. And with that, perhaps thinking of the discussion earlier of self-reflection, where are we? As Mr. Levy called and shared earlier, are we prepared to comment, to offer our constructive input? Are we prepared to offer our own resources in order to improve what is a great country, but even one that could be much better if we're working together? Hey, let's hear from you. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. End of the day, as the young fellow shared with me earlier, it is our future, but it's also our today that is, being jeopardized, that's called into question, and without a very concerted effort on our part, can we really say that we're making it any better for ourselves and for each other? Hey, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Or you can offer your thoughts on our WhatsApp, 925-3261. Or you can email talktoday@candw.ky. Now, as I was just leaving to come back into the studio, got a quick call from a lady who shared that she was thinking about something for a while and she wasn't quite sure how to go about it. And I offered, which I thought would have been the best thing to do. Why should I be the only one to benefit from what she had to say? Why doesn't she, together with the people she mentioned, accept the invitation to join us on the air, have a panel discussion? Hopefully she'll take it up. But with her permission, she shared what she wants to discuss is this notion that we're looking at our country perhaps from a very narrow, short-term sort of focused perspective. We have politicians who are concerned, she said, with the idea that they need to make sure that people who are unemployed or who are underemployed have meaningful employment, who can make money to not only pay their bills and educate their children, but to be able to feel that they're earning something, that they have value, that they're being rewarded for their efforts. Some of whom perhaps have been sponsored to get an education overseas and now come back and maybe challenged to find meaningful employment. Some of whom are facing eviction from their homes because they're behind on their mortgages, or some of whom who are feeling despondent because they don't think there's much hope for the future for their children, their families and the like. Some of whom who have either left or are considering leaving. And she said the challenge is that we're not seeing this. We're not seeing it because we don't want to see it. We're not seeing it because some of the people who are in a position of authority are us. We're not looking in the mirror and seeing that we're the ones to blame. Some of the people in a position are our spouses, our children, our good friends, and we're not calling them to account. And she said even worse, we're not seeing it because we feel that it does not directly and immediately affect us. Now, when I referenced earlier the notion of the port and Barcas and the dump and other things, she has repeatedly shared that we're looking at these things in isolation. She gave us an example. There was a discussion some time back about a project in Cameron. She said she was happened to have been over there for a fair bit during that time, and yes, the concern about I think she used the word the stench coming from the pond. The notion that the project may have or may not have been a good thing wasn't even analysed properly, because it seemed, again, this was her opinion, it seemed that we were prepared to draw lines based on personalities. And she said, just like we were doing with so many things, we get caught up in the debate on the cruise port because we either like it or we don't like it based on the people. The issue of the Barcas proposed excavation of 4 acres of turtle grass, whether that's a large area or a small area, is almost insignificant. What is the long-term project that's being proposed? What is the immediate impact to the environment and to the ecology and to the economy? But also, how is this going to play out? We're either vilifying an individual or a corporate entity, or we're somehow victimizing those people who may sign a petition, who may comment, whether publicly through online or directly to the Department of Environment, to say, listen, let's rethink this. She shared that part of the challenge is that we as a people perhaps do not want the responsibility. We complain, she said, that issues like coastal works licenses are within the remit of Cabinet, yet applications go to the Planning Department for other things. Why is it that we're still in this day of supposedly openness and transparency and accountability, not requiring those things to be sort of decided in a different forum? Again, she says, we point fingers at the politicians, but where are we as a populace looking to champion a greater sense of democracy? With that, let's just pause quickly. I think I captured what she shared. If I don't, hopefully she'll bring it to my attention. But we'll pause and take a short break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
This Health Flash is brought to you by Cleveland Clinic, Florida. Over 65 million people around the world have moderate or severe COPD, a family of diseases that includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Cleveland Clinic, Florida offers a wide range of management and treatment options for COPD, including programs focused on education, medication, smoking cessation, and pulmonary rehabilitation. A team of experts is ready to review your symptoms and test results to develop a comprehensive treatment plan. For more information, visit clevelandclinicflorida.org.
The public is being advised of roadworks today and tomorrow from early morning until evening on the Esteli-Tibbetts Highway near the Ritz-Carlton Bridge. Traffic heading into Georgetown will be affected and motorists will be merging onto one lane. Drivers are being asked to proceed with caution as roadwork is carried out. That's a one-lane closure on the Esteli-Tibbetts Highway near the Ritz-Carlton Bridge heading into town today and tomorrow.
The only bad workout is the one that never happens. Make 2019 the year you commit to fitness. Let King Sports Center put you on the right track with their Get Fit 2019 sale from December 15th to January 15th. 2-for-1 Powerhouse Gym memberships for $600 or a single membership for $325. And call them to find out how you can take an additional $100 off this sale price. 946-5464 or visit kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs. Remember, fit is not a destination. It is a way of life.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us here on this edition of Talk Today. 949-8037. Or toll free with the compliments of Flo. 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Someone just sent through a quick text during the break. And I'm almost tempted to read it, but I know it may be inflammatory to some. But it questions the public's participation in our democracy. The gist of it is saying that whether it's a petition calling for a referendum on the port, whether it's a petition against the Barker's issue, or whether it's a petition on the government, just like it was some time ago, to ban paraquat. Why is it that some things seemingly can gain traction? Now they use a different word, get approved, and other things seem to get lost in the fray. The person posed the questions. One, is it how it's organized? Or two, is it who's organizing it? You can draw your inferences. Now, we've heard that often, but if it is because of how it's organized, then let us learn how to better organize things to ensure that it gets to the fore. If it's because of who is organizing it, and the inference being, well, if you have money, or if you look a certain way, or you speak a certain way, then that carries more weight, then again, what are we doing to address that so that it's not an issue? It should be, now, that the person's text referenced the whole issue of, we look at Save the Beach campaign and Save, Smith's Cove, Smith's back there. He said even some people seemingly in their attempt to jump on a bandwagon may not recognize that they're very openly or disrespectful of, traditional values. Even if their outcome is good, is their process one to be questioned. Now, do you think, and this is just my inference from what I believe was part of the tone of the text, do you think that it's all, as the person said, fait accompli? It's already a foregone conclusion. So what's the point? Are you one with a defeatist mentality who believes that it doesn't make sense anyway? The person's text references that just like the port deal, the issue with Bacchus is going to be decided in a matter of a few short days, and it'll be another approval, just like the Honourable Speaker of the House saying, let's look at 50 stories now. He may be right in his vision that because of the limited land mass, we may need to look at 50-story buildings or 100-story buildings. Now, is that now and only one building, or is that future buildings in 50 years? Again, are we able to look at some things, and despite how they may be said, or who may be saying them, or when they may be said, is there merit? Or is it that we look at some things and say, okay, like the entry to an amusement park, there are only so many people that can be in there at any one time for safety reasons and other reasons. Maybe the country needs to think, well, we don't need to have any more of this type of development at this time, or we don't need to have this type of development at all. But who is willing to have those sort of discussions? And if it's decided to go one way or the other, and there are going to be some who feel that they won, some who feel that they didn't, is it a case that the win side is the right side? Not necessarily that you won means that you were fair and just and the like. I say that to think back to a great football match once that was played, and it was obvious from the spectators that the referees and the officials did not necessarily make the best calls. Now, one team was victorious and took the cup, and another wasn't. Did the winning team really, have the support of the football fans, even their own, diehard fans? A thought to consider. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. It is a new year, and as we challenge, whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow, to always put a good face and foot forward, and not to blindly stick our heads in the sand and pretend that we don't have issues and challenges, that we're not, like many, trying our best to do our best. How do we allow ourselves to move forward with great momentum and not be weighed down, by some of the things that have shackled us, those weights around our necks, as it were. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. There was another sentiment that was expressed to us as I consider looking at it and sharing it. And the hesitation is only because there are one or two things there that I believe, from what I understand, could potentially go before the courts, or at least somehow be subject to some sort of public commentary. And two, given that it is speculative, some may interpret it to be defamatory. And the hesitation is that how do we get to a point where we're not engaged in innuendo and rumor? We're not looking at things that are set to perhaps create what the old people say, strife in the community. But where are we prepared to look and hold the actions of others to account? And this person's sentiment, whereas in the past, has always proven to be, what they say, on the money. And there are times when speculative comments can, maybe result in sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and other times could lead you to go, well, oops, that one's on me. Now, I say that to share that so many of us know a lot, and there are reluctance, whether it's to call the Crime Stoppers line or to share information with the police in relation to a matter, or whether it's to report something to the Anti-Corruption Commission, or whether it's to bring something to our supervisor about a particular practice. We don't do it because we don't believe that it's our place to do it, or we don't be seen as this thing that back in my day we called tattletale. Now it's an informer. It has some other connotation. But from what this person is sharing and what I've inferred from it, are we now willing to overlook? And yes, I may have a greater responsibility not to spread rumor and innuendo. Or you heard on the radio that the fellow said the sky is falling, and then creates a panic. But what if we know something to be the case and we're not doing anything about it? Then are we as guilty or more so than the perpetrators? And if it's for us to not only investigate but to inform and to not just perhaps mitigate but prevent certain actions, is it our duty or not? What are the values in our society? 8949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. I always invite you to be a part of our discussions, whether here on Talk Today or whether with Mr. Art in the mornings on For the Record. It's only through an active engagement that we have a chance to hear. I believe we have time for one final call. Let's see if that caller is ready as we check our phones. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Or you can email talktoday@candw.ky, or you can send us a WhatsApp at 925-3261. Any callers, Miss Susan? Nope. Oh, almost time to call it a day then. Tomorrow, trust that you will, find not just that today was productive, but there's a promise of tomorrow, and equally that you find that what you did today, you can even do it again tomorrow, but you do it even better. And for those of you who are, mourning the loss of your spouse, your mother, hey, prayers are with you. And certainly remember that this is a society who is always very respectful and mindful to keep those who are mourning in their prayers. I invite you to come back tomorrow for more Talk Today, right after the midday news and midday meditation. Please stay tuned to Radio Cayman. Miss Susan will comfort you in song. She will inspire you with word. And, of course, our 3 to 6 Super Mix gets the young people hopping and jumping. Our news hour at 6. And all the good things that continue on. Like our faithful listener from West Bay always says, she has 2 radios on. No point in changing the dial, because we have something for everyone here on Radio Cayman. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.